Awesome. All right, guys, we are live here with our Finance Friday Wealth Creation course. We have a special guest, not so much a guest you guys are familiar with, and we have Neno Aquino joining us tonight. What's up, Neno?
Hey, what's going on, Jerry? Good to be here.
Awesome. We're going to be talking about some good stuff tonight. We're going to focus on how to secure your wealth. Now, I brought Neno on. He's going to be joining us each week on these now to give a little bit of a perspective. He talks with a lot of our clients one-on-one. And so a lot of the concepts that I share are things that he actually speaks with people on a daily basis. And he's got insight on, okay, well, how does this apply? What are some of the questions that get asked? What are some of those conversations he has every day? And so protecting wealth is definitely one of those things. Now, before we get rolling, Neno, do you want to introduce Mike just in case he's reaching out to people in the comments?
Of course. So for some of the more mature clients, you probably already know who Michael Kerrigan is. And so Michael is, has just come back on board here with us. So if he does reach out to you, and one or two things, right? One, don't be weird, talk to the guy. But two, he's actually reaching out to you just to see if you need any help, right? Like there's so much content that can actually be given in the next 50 minutes, next hour. So what Mike's actually going to be doing is going, hey, if you're looking for a little bit more information, maybe get a book, right? To have allowed the conversation to be ongoing. Right. We're actually having a sale on the book here, which Michael can go over that with you. And then he's going to get on a call with you. And then like either myself, which is going to be helping. Let's have a conversation. Let's see if it makes sense for us to continue talking. Right. Perhaps if you're looking for the information, if you're looking for the help, let's provide it. Let's provide it to you. And if it makes sense, we'll jump on a call and we'll go from there.
For sure. So if you guys get a message from Mike, that's what that's about. Again, the link, he can drop that in the chat too if you want to grab the book. But I want to hit a couple of points. I hit these every week. We need to get in the mentality being ready to learn tonight, right? We need to get our mindset right. So I'm going to cover some things we cover as ground rules every single week. Number one is have a purpose for being here, right? So if you don't have that picked out, take a moment, figure out why am I here? What am I going to do with the information, right? Second thing is getting rid of the idea that finances are impossible to learn about. Okay. I had a team member today. He was like, hey, I talked with someone and they had the impression that they could just never learn this stuff, right? Like they were going to give up on finances. They're like, hey, if we don't learn it, it's easier, which short term, yeah, it's easier not to learn stuff. But Neno, I mean, you know what I mean? It's not long term a good idea.
Absolutely not. By not learning, by saying that I cannot learn something, for one, in my experience, it's correlated with the failure, right? Okay, I've tried. It's like, okay, you know what? I don't want to even try it anymore, right? So I make myself not know about a subject because it is almost too painful to a degree to go and keep having failures, right? So how does that show up in the financial world or in the financial lives? I try, I work, I'm paycheck to paycheck, or I'm broke, I'm putting things on a credit card, right? So that's a way of failing, right? Because if my goal it is to actually improve and I'm not attaining the target, that means like I'm constantly failing. Right? It's almost like a battle, right? Running the rat race to a degree.
Yeah, and absolutely. So the thing that we teach with that is money. It all comes down to two things, right? Math and vocabulary, right? So if there's the ability to use a calculator and literally just use the dictionary.com app on your phone or Investopedia, anyone can learn about finances. So remove the idea that you can't learn about it, that it's too hard. And then the other thing that I want to make sure that we go over here is, we covered the fact that money is something that you're never going to learn at a pinnacle, right? The idea that I know it all, I don't have to learn anymore. Nano and I would probably call that either ignorance or arrogance, maybe a mix of both, right?
Yeah, that's right. And from not only that, there's the theory and there's the doingness, right? I could read all day about working out. Once I work out, I'm actually going to see the results about what I read. I could attend for 4 years a webinar and never take action, right? It's like the equivalent of reading about working out and not working out. Like I need to learn. Good, that's one portion. And then I need to do it. Because as I'm doing, like my viewpoint, my shift along the way, oh, I thought it was this way and that way. This is something that I actually learned with you, Jerry, like a while back, right? And you're like, okay, you learned it, but now you got to do. And I kind of cognized, like, oh yeah, I guess I need to do that, right?
Yeah.
So I got to put into the application because it's not just about let me consume the data and no doingness. The doingness has to be behind it in order for me to get the end result, in order for me to get the product.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for me, and this is just my viewpoint, guys, take this or leave this. If I don't have results in an area, it means I don't know about it. Right. Kind of like what Nano just said. So if I'm not, if I don't have passive income, I'm not going to act like I know all about investing. If I'm not out of debt, I'm not going to act like I know all these strategies. Right. So there's almost a skepticism we have to remove and just look at our results and say, okay, here's my stats. Here's what I've got done in the area. And I either do or don't have the knowledge based on that. Right. And the greatest thing is that everyone starts somewhere. Okay, believe it or not, I'm teaching the webinar. Nano and I, we both started at zero. I was a dumb kid from Alaska that grew up, in the lower class. I had no financial literacy skills, right? I didn't know, how to budget. I didn't know how to earn more income. I wasn't educated at all. So I had to start where a lot of you guys start. Some of you guys might even be starting above that in order to learn and grow. And so it takes, some humility and recognizing I don't know it all, but I can know. And the combination of those two things is where we want to be at tonight. And then finally, if you have questions, Nano and I will go live with you. So we'll chat with you here on the mic. So you can mic up and speak with us tonight. If you're on Facebook, drop them in the chat, in the comments. Mike can field comments for us there and we'll answer those as well. But the topic tonight is protection, right? Protection, securing your wealth, right? Nano, how many conversations do you have with people that are like, I want to build it, I want to grow it, I want to do it, but they miss the, okay, well, do you have a foundation?
So how often in a day, in a week, or in a month?
Let's say in a week. Like, how many of those talks do you have where you can just tell someone is overlooking the point of they need to do it the right way and build the foundation?
So, I mean, at least 4 to 5 times a day, right? That I'm deciding and having appointments with a person. And then perhaps it's almost like not taking in consideration some of the factors that goes on as a foundation in order to be protected, right? Because a way in order for me to be securing my wealth, as an example, if we're talking about money, is first thing is removing my money, right, via the US dollar as a via and putting in a store of value, right? Just that concept in itself is almost foreign to most people, right? Since 1971, that the dollar is no longer backed up by gold. Like, this idea becomes a little foreigner to most people. Just understand that. So that's a way that I could be protecting myself, right? And by not fully understand like the rules of the game. And what does that mean, the rules of the game? The rules of the game is we are, to a degree or another, being impinged upon the Federal Reserve Bank. What they're maneuvering, right? Like, as far as printing in dollars. So we are forced to play this involuntary game, whether we like it or not, right? Jerry, he said at one point in time, he didn't want to play. I'm not going to play this, right? So I'm going to choose poverty, right?
Doesn't work very well.
Exactly. So, but what is my point? So there's a game that we're being forced to play, and then we got to learn the rules of the game. So in order for me to learn these rules, right? Okay, what are they doing? Do they save in dollars, or where do they save? Where do they have 80% of their reserves? Right? They're telling you and I to do something, but they're doing something else, right? So just from understanding, it's almost like this guy who is putting the rules of the game. If I don't understand that I need to secure and back myself up with the same things that they're doing, I am going to be at the effect. It's like running on a treadmill, AKA inflation, every year, right? Where inflation is coming up and the treadmill keeps getting faster and faster. I keep getting tired, and I don't fully understand because I'm working my butt off, but things may not seem to be moving forward. So I got to understand the rules of the game in order to even understand the concept of securing my wealth.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. So I want to share, we've got another PowerPoint that I put together. We're going to go through tonight. And one of the things that I want to start with here, if I can figure out my settings. One of the things that I want to start with here is the idea that wealth isn't wealth if it goes somewhere. Okay. And what I mean by that is if it goes away, like if you lose it, it wasn't wealth. Right. And so we hear a lot of times, like, especially, when we're talking with families and clients and people that are interested in financial independence, it's, I want to invest. I want to do Bitcoin. I want to do stocks. I want to do the business. I want to do that. And it's not saying you shouldn't do those things, but That's building. And what are you building on? Right. So a couple of the things on this is the different types of security. Now, Nano hit a big one, knowledge, right? Like, what are some ways knowledge could be security? And there's ways like with knowledge where it gives you access to things, you advance because of it. And there's also like not having knowledge and then it costing you, right? Like Nano, you probably have, plenty of ideas and examples of times where you've seen that, where someone either they didn't know something and because of that it just doesn't exist to them, or, they already did something and because of that knowledge, maybe they made a mistake.
Totally. So there's the concept of having the knowledge or having no knowledge, or even worse yet, thinking you have the proper knowledge and working that with that computation to give an undesirable result. So if I go into an equation thinking that 2 + 2 = 5, right? 5, it's the wrong result, right? So at the moment that I have the correct data, it should result into the correct answer. So, and how does that translate into finances? It's statistics. What have I accomplished in that area? Does it provide the result that I'm looking for? So the knowledge, right? It is a type of security, especially when, let me give you the context. I'm talking with a person and they're, let's say once they understand the concept, let's say the secret account or the blueprint plan, they become more certain about what it needs to be done. And guess what happens? Things start to move a little faster for them. So think about this. I have proper knowledge, speed things up. No knowledge, it's like this struggle or the incorrect knowledge.
And it's an expensive struggle. So knowledge is the big one. The other big one is savings. We're going to talk about tonight how savings is a type of financial security. You have your insurances, you've got things like credit, there's different entities. And the final one is affluence. The greatest financial security you can have is wealth and affluence, right? So we're going to talk about a lot of these concepts tonight. But first, I want to go over, like we always go over, the myths, okay? So what are some of the myths behind this? Right, Nano, have you ever heard this one with insurances? Oh, insurances are a scam. I don't need those.
Matter of fact, today with a friend, a lead, right? She's like, because she was, going over the blueprint. But it's like, I don't want to have all those types of insurance. I'm like, we're going to worry about their bridge when it's time to cross it. First, right now, let's understand about the difference about money and currency, right?
Yeah.
So I have heard that quite often.
And have you heard this one too? Probably not as much, but those that are like, they live in an insurance bubble, like insure everything. And they've got like, what if I lose my left arm on a Tuesday and it's cloudy out insurance?
Totally. Like a accident insurance, dismember insurance, like accident, like, you name it, all kinds of random insurance, right? I'm like, what is this, right? It's almost too much.
And then there's this one. You've heard this: savers are losers.
Yeah. There's I'm not going to drop any names, right? But there's some big
there's some people out there that think this.
Yeah.
But they still save.
So and it's almost like, they're giving the piece of data, but what are they doing?
Right. And then this is one that's a big, we're going to talk about how to secure your wealth with trusts and corporations. Again, for me, growing up, like in the lower class, this one was taboo. Like setting up a trust, setting up a corporation. It's like one of those things where it's almost like a red flag. Like, are you possibly doing something that, is unethical or immoral by doing this? Did you kind of have that same vibe with it, Nano, when you started learning about like that was a thing?
So for me, I had this contradicting idea that people who are wealthy, right, it's related to being evil, right? This was more like of a general topic, right? I'm trying to, but it's like, okay, innately, and up until I was able to spot it, right, years ago, like if I become wealthy, it means that I'm going to be a bad person, right? Like somehow that was the computation going on. I don't know how, but like that's just being fed, right? Okay, good. And I'm like, and I'm trying to, I'm like, well, but innately, I'm trying to do this so I can help my family. But at the same time, I have this other piece of data that tells me that if I do become wealthy, somehow I'm like not a good person. That is the equivalent of the example that I gave earlier, 2 + 2 = 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I grew up with that same thing. The other one I grew up with is most people have one or the other on this. Credit is good or credit is bad. It's like, this always thing that we have. It's a myth on credit. And then this one, expansion is risky, right? Like this was something I had to overcome, the idea that I was going to go earn a lot of income, that I was going to start a business, that I was going to learn sales, that I was going to start investing, that I was going to start, figuring out ways to reduce my taxes was like this risky, dangerous thing. You probably had that too, Nano.
Totally. It's almost like it's better to stay small, right? Some of the sayings, right? It's better,
Yeah.
It's, going big is not always the good thing, right?
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it's just like, if you don't go big, what's the alternative? Being at the effect of the game, right? Or people who are playing the game at a bigger level. It's almost like being a little boat on the ocean. If they try to push them to the side, as past 2 years, people were forced, right? They could not survive. And what happens? Not expanding was actually more risky than actually expanding.
Yeah. And that's a great example. Like in the last 2 years, 2020 happened. People that probably, didn't have insurance wished they did. People that probably didn't have enough credit reserves wished they did. People that thought savers are losers, all of a sudden they didn't have an income, and that saving was something that they wished they would have done. Now, the truths behind this, we won't dwell on these too much, but the truth here on the insurance is we're going to go over these individually. There are 9 types of insurances that almost everyone needs at various times in their life. Okay. So that's the reality of it. There are about 9 of them. We're going to talk about those tonight. Now, on the idea that you need all of the insurance in the world, that also doesn't mean that there are only 9 types. There aren't 20, right? So if you're in the insurance bubble, like we want to make sure that we're covering what needs to be covered, nothing more, nothing less. On saving, the truth about that is saving is the linchpin to wealth, right? Like Nano, if you talk to someone and they tell you that they're not going to save money, but they want to build wealth, what is your immediate thought, just based on experience and what you know is true?
So we got to look at the end goal, right? So we want to become wealthy, right? Or why, right? So, okay, because we want to become free. Well, fantastic. So financial freedom is the game. Now, if I'm not free, what am I? To a degree or another, I'm somewhat of a bond, like I'm in bondage, right? To not being free. Now, bondage to what and to whom? Again, understand the rules of the game as far as the Federal Reserve Bank. So wealth, it is only going to be accomplished by what? Doing 3 major things. I got to earn. I must save, ideally 40% of what I make, and I need to invest. So here's the linchpin. Here's the earning, right? Here's the earning. Here's the investing. The linchpin, it is going to be the thing that it is going to be connecting both of them. That is going to enable the investing to actually occur. That's the linchpin. Without it, I'm going to earn. Oh, and I got to invest. What about the saving? This is the thing that is going to drive these together as an ongoing activity.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. The other one is the trust and corporation. So the truth here is these have been successfully used for hundreds of years. So the idea that they're risky and taboo, it's like, okay, well, almost every single wealthy family in the history of America at some point has used trusts and corporations successfully. The IRS didn't care. There's nothing wrong with it, right? And it just comes down to, like Nano said at the beginning, our lack of education on the subject. We make it into this monster, this boogeyman, just because we don't know what it is and how it works. Credit, the truth there is credit's amoral. Like to say anything financial is good or bad, it's not a dog. Like it didn't urinate on your carpet and you're like bad. And it's amoral. It's a tool. You either use it for a good or a bad thing. Back to what Nano said, well, what's your knowledge level? Because if you don't know stuff, you're going to use it for harmful things. If you know stuff, you're going to use it for constructive things. And then, as we already covered, complacency and contraction is more risky than expansion, right? So these are the truths behind this. Now, the first thing that we're going to dive into here is, what does your foundation look like, right? These are all risks. Like if you look at these, like Nano, just kind of go through some of these with us. Like, what are your thoughts on these different points?
Yeah, for example, the major one, right? At least as far as starting it off, is like having the proper knowledge to why secure your foundation, right? Wealth cannot be built on a weak foundation. Now, perfect example, right? I could have a wealthy family that passes it on, a good chunk of money, to a person that has no knowledge on what to do, doesn't have the wherewithal, doesn't have the muscle, the discipline, the things required in order to build wealth. Is that going to sustain, right? And we see over and over a person making bad judgment decisions, not knowing what to do, or being at the effect of somebody else who has the knowledge on that subject. So I need to have that for myself, even if I'm married with, if I have my spouse also needs to know that, right? For themselves. Are they going to benefit if I learn, if I am knowledgeable in the area? 100%. But them as an individual would need to go through that themselves. Same thing for savings, because this is a muscle type of a behavior, right? Imagine having one horse pulling a carriage towards one direction. I'm able to go with a certain speed. Now I have two horses pulling the same carriage. Now with both of the strengths, now we're able to move a whole lot faster. So that's a little bit of what I see here, Jared, on the first two topics here.
Yeah, and the other thing too is the savings point. So this is one as an investor. I skipped my slides. Let me go back here. As an investor, this is one that I see in the private investing space. I wouldn't say all too often, but often enough that I like to bring it up. So, I talk with people and they're like, I want to invest. One of the things that we teach our clients is you need to save 6 months in reserves. If you're borrowing against your assets, if you're borrowing against things like gold and silver and real estate, you need to have 10% of all of your credit lines in reserves in addition to that. And on top of that, you need 50 grand to do your first deal, right? So for the average person, that's like 100 grand. We're going to tell them to save before you ever invest in anything, right? And if I don't do that, let's say I'm going to skip the savings, right? Technically, this means I'm insolvent. And I want to just paint the scenario. If I go do a private investment deal and I agree to a term, right? Like I tell them, hey, I'm gonna do a deal with the big boys. I've got enough. I'm gonna go in with you guys. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna be a partner with you guys. It's gonna be awesome. And I tell them we're gonna do a 5-year deal. And then in 2 years, I'm saying, hey guys, I need my money back because the refrigerator broke or because I lost my job. That is the last deal they will ever let you do in that fund. Right? Because you're a quitter. You pull the money, and they don't even have to give it to you is the thing. They don't have to give you the money early, but because I didn't have savings, I'm now in a position where I'm a liability to my partners, to the fund, to the other investors, simply because I didn't plan ahead. Right? So this is a big one. Lack of credit. This is something that puts your savings at risk. Savings is your first layer of defense when an emergency happens or a downturn, right? If you run out of savings, you've got credit on top of that. Right? We tell our clients 6 months of savings, 6 months of credit. If you have no entities, right? No entities means you've got no asset and no liability protection, right? Like your assets are not protected from liability that could come in. We'll talk about what that looks like tonight. No insurance means you could literally be wiped out by risk, right? And we all tell ourselves like, this could never happen to me. This is a chance. I'm willing to take the bet, right? Well, it's kind of like going to sea without any life jackets. Right? Like maybe you don't go capsize, but maybe you do. And if you are on that chance of you do, you're not going to make it out alive if you don't have a lifeboat and you don't have life jackets. So that's why we talk about insurance. And then staying small means that you'll never have the ultimate security, which is wealth. Right? Now, the next thing I want to hit here is knowledge, right? So Neno, you've heard that. Have you heard that cliche, what you don't know can't hurt you?
Yeah, or being ignorant,
I think that's bullshit
or something, right? Or
ignorance is bliss. What you don't know can't hurt you.
Exactly, until it does, right?
Till it does. So this is an example I wanted to draw out for you guys, and I'm sure Nano's got some examples he can go over too. But this is an example that I've actually seen, almost happen, because people here, especially with knowledge, like knowledge is not the same thing as tidbits. Like watching a 7-second TikTok video is not knowledge. I don't have the ability to apply what I just learned. I just understand that there is a concept in existence. I have to learn, okay, well, what are the mechanics and how do I do it? When do certain rules apply? So in this example, this is a real life scenario. John, he wants to own life insurance and he wants to do it in a solo 401k. Two big buzzwords. I want to do the infinite banking or the investment grade insurance contract. And I want to put it in a self-directed 401k. And I want to be my own trustee and my own custodian. Okay. I've actually had people ask me for this. Okay. Well, what John is unaware of, again, John is aware of this, right? That's what John is aware of, that I can do this thing, that it exists. Nano, you've probably heard of people, you've probably talked with people, they have enough of the story where they know it exists, but nothing beyond.
Totally. And that goes with even life insurance, right? Sacred account. Yeah, I want to be able to do X, Y, and Z, but I want to be able to do IULs, for example, right? Do you guys work with that? So then I have to kind of go explain the difference between both of them, how one has a, renewable, so basically the rising cost of insurance every year. And eventually it's going to be, anyway, so I go through the breakdown and they're like, oh, I didn't know that, right? or they just see the numbers where it's quote unquote a higher percentage in comparison to another, but they don't see the other side of the coin, right? That doesn't really get talked about as a like, because most people, yeah, by the way, you're going to be making this much, but we're going to be taking it up. And by the way, this product was also abandoned in the 80s, right? they don't hear that, right? Or they haven't dived into the subject.
So this is an example kind of like that. So someone can know, okay, there's something called a solo 401k, and I can own life insurance in it, and I can get tax deferral, and I can be my own trustee and custodian. And those are all really cool buzzwords, right? Well, in this example, what John is unaware of is that he can only own certain amounts of certain types of life insurance in a solo K, right? So he might not know that the most whole life insurance you can own in a solo K is 49.9%. And that if you go over that amount, then you're now penalized. The entire thing is taxable as a distribution with 10% penalties and income tax. John doesn't know that. He just knows I want to put life insurance in a 401k, right? So this is the penalty for that lack of knowledge. Okay, the other one is he doesn't understand if he's his own custodian, right? So he's trying to be his own trustee and custodian. That sounds really cool, but then he doesn't understand that there are actual duties that go along with that. Right? Like there's expectations that the IRS would have if they were ever to audit me and I'm saying, hey, I'm self-directing, I'm my own custodian, I'm my own trustee. They're going to say, great, show us all your plan compliance, show us your accounting, show us that you've been, issuing receipts and you're actually tracking fees and doing all the things that a trustee and a custodian should do. Right? So this lack of knowledge could cost John 37% income tax plus a 10% penalty on his entire 401k balance, simply by not knowing that. Right? So that's, and this is just an example. There's so many of them that are like this, but again, we don't see all of this stuff. When we get talked to about finances, we get told, this very interesting thing I can do, and it sounds really cool and amazing, and here's what the wealthy do. But we need to understand, okay, well, what's the bottom context? Right? And Neno, have you figured out a way to get knowledge yet with no time and no money and no effort invested?
Not at all. I mean, I've tried, if we only the matrix were able to be duplicated where we could just upload the data, right? Inside. So that would mean I've been looking for it. If you found it, send it my way. But up until then, it is getting the book, getting a dictionary, getting my highlighter and going through it.
And this is what we would recommend. Invest time, money, and effort, right? So if you're not putting just for security, what do you need to be doing? We tell you put at least 10% of your income towards learning, right? Like personal development, learning about finances, getting literate, right? Spend at least an hour a day studying, right? We tell people, even if you can only do 10 minutes, like that's better than nothing. And that's how you build that knowledge up over time, right? Nano, how long have you been doing these two things, investing money and time into just developing yourself?
Since I want to say, it was maybe for 12 years now, 12, 13 years. I'm 35 now. So I think I started doing this right around 23. So they are 12 years.
Yeah. So 12 years, I've been doing it about the same. Right. And so that's something where you're not going to get through this without investing in yourself. Now, the next one is savings. So Nano, talk to us about the 40% savings rule. Like, what's the significance of that? Why do we tell people that that's the amount that they should be saving?
For sure. So when you take a look at a statistic, right? When you take a look at successful actions, we got to look at one, what is my goal? What is my target? Because if my goal, it is not to become financially free, this may not be applicable to you. Now you may say, hey, who are you to say, or to come up with that number, or to come up with that idea? Like, I didn't, right? That's just the statistics of the wealthy, of what they have done since when? Since 1913. Why? Because that's when the Federal Reserve Bank came about. Ever since the dollar came into existence, the Federal Reserve Bank came into existence to start printing more dollars. Now that rule had to be in place. Why? So they can continue reinvesting their money to continue outpacing inflation, to continue outpacing what the Federal Reserve Bank was doing. I'm just one of the things, right? And that is like an imposed, quote unquote, taxation, a forced savings plan that the individual is doing upon themselves in order for them to be able to survive, right? That is the whole expansion thing. 40% rule, that's the ideal number, right? Is statistically speaking, what less than 90% of America is going to be able to do that. So what do? We start with something, right? Could be with, usually whenever they come to the, start as a client, the very first concept is, how about we actually start saving using precious metal, right? As a savings plan before we actually have the secret account in place. Why? Because it's now a real thing, especially if I don't have the muscle to have built in order to do the savings. What is the first thing that I actually want to be able to do as far as to understand the part of the strategy of the game is get my money out of dollar and put it into a store of value. So that will be the very first thing. So we would be saving in 3 major places, ideally, right? 40% ideal number. Does not mean we start there, but we start with a gradient. Okay, if I cannot run 6 miles a day, how about I walk around the block, right? The habit, it is more important than be able to run 6 miles today. You know what? I don't want to do this anymore because everything is hurting, right? So that would be like more the perspective there. And by the way, if you have a lot of that, we actually have a strategy to be helping you to be able to buy your own debt back using life insurance, which is part of the game plan. But that comes with what? With the knowledge about what to do. Because if I don't know, it sounds, oh, it's a scam. Sounds too good to be true. I hear that all the time, right? So do you have, what are your thoughts on that, Jared?
So I think you're dead on. And I think, a lot of times, people, and I saw the comment in here, people save, but because they save in the wrong location, it becomes a bad experience, right? That whole quote, savers are losers, came from the experience of someone putting money in a bank and realizing that inflation devalued it and they have less than they started with. Now, that doesn't mean never save. It means don't save in banks. Right, like Nano said, a bank, it's not a store of value. The US dollar is not a store of value. It's a currency. It's intended for exchange, right? So if I save in that thing, it's no different than like if I misuse any tool, right? Like if I'm misusing my phone, and I think that it's a dinner plate and I eat off of it, it's probably going to break the phone. I'm like, phones suck. Never buy an iPhone. Mine broke, right? So those are misusing the tool, not necessarily the concept being bad. I want to hit a couple questions though. So let's look at our chat here. I want to just see if there's any questions. If you guys have questions for Nano, and I dropped them in the chat. Comment from Keith. He says, someone told me that money only enhances who you are. That helped me a lot. That's awesome. Mark hit it on that. He said, more importantly,
one of Mike's guests, Jerry, we have a couple guests here from Mike. We have Maddie here on the webinar. So by the way,
awesome. Welcome, Maddie.
Yes, with a couple of guests from Mike. If there's anybody else that Mike invited, I believe Jennifer as well. Mike invited her. So I see Maddie, I see Jennifer. That's all I recognize. Anybody else? We'll go ahead and give you a shout out. And actually, by the way, let's go ahead and set up a time for you and I to speak. So in order for me to help you, if you're open to it.
That's awesome. If you want to connect with Nano for a call, reach out to Mike. Mike can help you get that scheduled. Mark says, more importantly is where you save your money. Exactly. Okay, comment from Jeff says, I learned that and tell everyone who talks about rich people being evil. I met a lot of shitty poor people too, more than I have met shitty rich people. Okay, that's awesome. So Keith has a question. Let's bring Keith on. He's got a question about borrowing against home equity.
Hello?
Hey, Keith, how are you tonight? You're live here with Nano and I.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm here with you guys.
Awesome. What is your question?
So you guys are talking about all this money and borrowing. Can you use equity in your house? And I've got a business, so I've got a lot of equity of what it's worth to what's left on it. Can you use that also to create wealth?
Absolutely. Nano, do you want to hit that?
Yeah, for sure. So those will be the 3 places, like when we talk about the 40% rule, Keith, that will be one of the places that a person would be saving, right? The first one, ideally, we have a foundation where we're doing the precious metals and we have life insurance for the reasons of what? Being able to be liquid and also being able to have the money there as far as with gold and silver. Once that's in place, we then go to the home equity line of credit to be able to do the same thing there as the third tier on top of those 2. So that's definitely doable. And we actually help clients to do that as well.
Yeah. And that's kind of so it's called a first position home equity line of credit, Keith. My team can get you some info on that. And the strategy there really is like Nano said, that's our third tier. Ideally, we want to be building up with life insurance, gold and silver first, and then we start using that second, just because it is a little bit more of a risky play. It's especially if you're living there, it's the place that's over your head. So we can borrow against that, but we want to do it in the right sequence. But it is an excellent way to get the equity, potentially producing passive income for you. Mike says, when I was in the military, I was just told to max out my thrift savings plan and put it into the G fund. I think most people get that advice from people. All right, let's see if we have any other questions here. Jennifer says she's been investing for 26 years, and this is the first time everything has made sense, investing in education. That's awesome, guys. And I can't tell you, like, I've been doing this for over a decade, how many times I've sat down with people that they have been doing it for, and kudos to Jennifer for doing something for 26 years. It maybe not have been what she's learning today, but she was making progress for 26 years. It's easier to build off that foundation. But, people that, they're in their 40s, 50s, sometimes 60s, they read the book and they're like, hey, I didn't know this before. I wish I would have learned this when I was 18, 19, 20 years old. Nano, do you have any examples of like, people who have gotten it early and what they've been able to do?
So depends on what you mean by early, right? I could be, I've talked to some people that, their parents set up a life insurance for them. That's kind of like starting a little early, right? Example firsthand would be you starting I think at 23, 24, however old you were, that whenever you got yours started. So it depends on comparing to what early, right? So starting, it is better than not starting. So that's early in comparison to those that never start.
For sure. You can't
right?
be late if you never show up.
Exactly, right? So it's like, well, I want to start early. Well, I mean, what are we comparing to? Because what are we talking about here? Over 90% of people don't do this. So if I start, regardless of my age, that means I'm already ahead of the game just by starting, right? So that's the whole point. Like, I mean, sometimes I come across this, I'm this old, or I'm only able to save this much. I'm like, okay, what's the alternative? Not do anything? Like, I mean, that's something. I mean, even if I don't make it in this lifetime, when I drop the body, when I die, my family will receive a death benefit, which kind of goes back to the responsibility, right? To be able to care for more, like, what is the purpose that I'm doing this, right? Because I don't know if you ever came across this, Jerry, and I think obviously you did, knowing your story, but having a stronger purpose in order to build wealth, right? Like, you talk a lot about your mom and be able to just be there for family, right? Which is a good, strong thing for me as well. So if you don't have that in place, when things do get tough, like, what are you going to do? Like, okay, good. I'm not perhaps just going to be doing this for me. I'm going to also be doing this for more people beyond myself. And that's where you're going to have, okay, good. I'm going to have the discipline. I'm going to study. I'm going to do what it takes. Because even if I don't accomplish, I'm going to leave this behind for those that love me and that I love them.
Yeah, and that's totally it. And it's the absolutist mindset of like, I can't do it all the way, so I'm not going to do any, like, because I didn't start a time, I shouldn't start at all. And I'm going to give you guys an analogy for this. It's kind of like saying, if I have children, because I can't enroll them in private school, I'm not going to educate them at all. Right? Like, you would never do that, right? But it's with finances, because I can't save 40%, I'm going to save nothing. Because I can't, invest now the way I want to, I'm not going to do anything at all. Well, the progress you can make over the next 5, 10, 15 years, because this is not a 40-year game we're telling you about. This is 10, 15 years hard, and then you're done. So if you're 50, you could still be done by 65. If you're 60, you could still be done by 70, 75, and have financial independence for the remainder of your time. We have a question here from Keith again on precious metals. Let's bring Keith back on.
Howdy.
Hey, Keith, we haven't talked to you in like 3 minutes, man.
I know, it's like been a long time.
So you had a question about precious metals and coins?
Yeah, because I got somebody that's trying to get me into this ZK 7000 something, like you guys do mint prep metals or something. So they're talking about investing in special metal coins that come out, like unknown soldered coins or whatever. And they're supposedly worth more than just a regular precious metal. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, so that's the difference between it's called numismatic coins. So those are more like collector's items, right? So there's numismatic coins and there's bullion. And so when you're looking at buying coins, you want to understand the difference. With numismatic, you're paying for the rarity or the significance of the coin, right? Whether it has special markings on it or there's only so many of them minted. And you're going to pay a premium. You're going to pay more than melt value. Melt value means this is an ounce of gold and it's worth what an ounce of gold is on the market. And so I want to pay the commodity price for that. On a numismatic, there's going to be extra on top of that because it's significant. I don't want to say that they're a bad idea. I don't do them. It's more like investing in art. I don't invest in art either. It's similar to investing in a baseball card, right? You've got to find someone that thinks it's worth what you say it's worth. So when I buy precious metals, I do just buy straight bullion. That's what we recommend to our clients. And the reason we work with mint builders is because it gives you wholesale access. If you're buying a commodity, it comes down to, okay, well, how close to the actual price am I getting with the lowest possible fees, right? And so if I was buying wheat, I wouldn't want to pay a bunch of markups on my wheat, no different than gold and silver, right? If I was building a house, I wouldn't want to pay a bunch of extra premiums and costs on top of the hard costs of building the house. I want to get the best deal I can. So Mint Builder gives you wholesale membership access. So if you want info on that, my team can help give you some data on, just the bullion market, the gold and silver market. The idea behind bullion is you want to buy it as close as you can to that wholesale price. That's a store of value. You can borrow against it. And then when you sell it, you're going to sell it for market price as well. So if it goes up in value over time, you kind of can predict that. With a numismatic coin, you could say, here's the melt value is on an ounce of silver, the melt value is $30. But this one is 75 because it's got a special marking on the front. Now, whether or not someone's going to pay me 75 or 30 instead of 30 is not something I can predict. And it may or may not happen, right? So those are the two big differences there. All right, very good. We have a question from Jennifer here. Let's bring Jennifer on. All right, let's see if we can bring Jennifer on here live.
You can't.
All right,
see.
we should have Jennifer. Can you hear us, Jennifer?
Yes.
Awesome. How are you tonight?
Great. Scared.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, what is your question?
I'm just wondering, I have a whole bunch of debt, but we have money to bring into this. We're about to sell 3 properties. And so I'm wondering, I watched the zero part of the equation where you have to pay off your debt and do the rate all of your transactions 1 through 5. I'm scared as shit to do that, but I'm going to do it. So we have this money to bring into this after we sell our properties. Savannah is a hot market. I'm wondering, is it going to take as long as the last video I watched where it could take 20 years to get to the 250 or 500 or, $1 million point? If I have money to bring into this, will it be faster? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, that's a good question. And that's an honest question. So it's math, right? And so the big end goal is you want to have passive income that exceeds your savings, expenses, and taxes. Now, how quickly we get that math done is 100% subjective, right? So for me, it was very fast, and it's because I had, the motivation to get it done. And I was honest with myself on, okay, I'm willing to put the work in. We had a client last night. I had a client that actually texted me. He's like, he's been doing investment deals with us for a while. He texted me a picture of his kitchen table, and the entire table is covered with deposit receipts from passive income deals he's been doing. And so he's been a client of ours for less than 10 years. When he started, he was worth a couple $100,000. He's worth over $1 million now. He's got more in monthly passive income than most people have in active income. And so for him, he's on that track. So it definitely is possible to go faster. Neno, would you speak to that for a second too?
For sure. Like, for example, so Jennifer and we talked a little bit this past week. But that is a very thing, Jennifer, that if you actually are able to free that up you have 150K in debt from, I see here where you posted on the chat, and 400 in cash to bring it in. Once we actually eliminate the debt, you're going to free up however much cash flow from that in itself. That's going to be automatically an increase as part of your cash flow, as part of your income, right? Because you're no longer paying that to a bank. Second thing is that the 150K, ideally, it is put inside the sacred account. We borrow from it. We handle the debt. We have now income that you're paying towards the debt. You're going to be repaying yourself. That leaves you with what, $250,000 left. Just from a mathematical standpoint, that puts you as pretty close to the threshold of being a sophisticated investor. Now, granted that we still need to go through the education part for that you understand the theory behind it and have the experience, right? Make sure that you're properly insured. Now we have 6 months of reserves, and now we have a portion of your savings using precious metals. And then before we actually talking about investing is how about we start financing things that we're going to need anyway, such as a vehicle, for example, right? Most people may not think about that, right? But how about if you become the bank and you finance your car and you make money doing that, right? You could make that's something that I'm going to need it anyways. Why go through a bank, right? A major bank. Why not finance that myself? So I could do that. So that could be my very first deal, right? AKA, right? Like Jerry helped me out with the with the car, right? Okay, good. So most people may not correlate to that. Why? Never heard of it. Scam, right? I'm not saying that, you know, that's your viewpoint. I'm just saying that just a shift, right? So how about doing things that I'm going to be doing anyways and make money while I'm doing it? Once that's done, how about I do the home equity line of credit, right? I then now have my house and I'm able to have enough equity in my house and I pull money then to do a deal down. This deal pays for my mortgage, right? That's just a different approach versus like, you know what? I have 250K. Let me put in real estate. That's one way to do it, right? How about we set a foundation, we set a property where you start financing these things along the way that you're going to do it regardless. And then you start increasing, having all these different flows, what a strong foundation, right? We start bypassing the banks. Now, I'm going to connect this to something that I touched on the beginning of the call, which was who is behind the whole thing, meaning who is controlling the root of the game, right? The Federal Reserve Bank. If that's been an association, if I have some kind of a communication or attachment with them, money, right? Cash, it is a form of a communication. So if I'm having my money going towards to them to a degree or another, I am at the effect of those individuals. And just by the doingness of what they're doing, it doesn't seem like they have their best interest in mind. So the more that I'm able to remove myself from that and be able to finance things, I'm going to be able to speed things up. Why? Because I'm not going back. I'm not actually going through a block, which is a bank, right? Using them, which it is a financial trap along the process. So I'm giving you this explanation to answer your question. I want to give you some context that yes, it could actually be done quite fast. First thing is to understand, having the knowledge. Once that's in place, then we pull the trigger.
Yeah, and the clients are ours that to add to what Nano just said, the clients are ours that move the fastest. What they do is they focus on the next step, right? So they look at, okay, well, here's where I'm at now. Here's my next step. They'll set a target date and they'll say, hey, I want to be on, this step by this date. And then that's all they focus on. The people that move the slowest, what happens is they don't ever have a target date. So like, hey, I'm on phase 0, or I'm on phase 1 or whatever phase. And then they just kind of like stay there, right? And they forget about it for a little while. It goes on the back burner. Then they come back to it and they're like, oh, I really should be doing this more. And then they do it a little bit more. It's kind of like why people never lose weight, right? You could be like, okay, I'm going to lose 10 pounds. Here's the target. I'm going to break this down by week. And then I'm going to manage myself into that first one, right? Now, the other thing too, which, hit on the head is sometimes people will intentionally slow down because of a lack of understanding. Right. So they'll be like, okay, for example, the home equity line of credit. I don't know what that is. That sounds different. It sounds new. Let me put like the brakes on, which we're not saying do things you don't understand, but we're saying, okay, well, don't put the brakes on. Just put the intensity into learning. Okay. It's either a good idea or a bad idea. Let me pick one of them, make it as quick as I can. And by doing that fast, having those short targets, and then either, deciding for or against something immediately, getting rid of that maybe and that wafting. That's definitely probably the most successful thing I see with clients that move quickly. Awesome. I think we've got a couple more comments here. I don't even think we're going to get through our slides, Nano.
I mean, it is what it is, at least we're helping people with some real questions.
Yeah, Crystal has a good point. She says it happens faster than you imagine. Everything flows one step after the other. That one is, and she dictated that really well. That one is hard to picture till it happens. It is like, okay, it's like the domino effect. You knock over the first one, which is the hardest, and then the momentum starts catching up. And so it's built in a way where each time you progress, it does happen faster than the last. Jennifer says, I'm getting the four accounts on Monday. That's awesome. So that's the income account, the set aside account, the reserves, the sacred account. Very cool. Okay, cool. So let me see if we have any questions on Facebook here. Neno, Andrew Davis says he just bought some more precious metals today on his Mint Builder membership. He's stacking them up.
That's what's up, man.
That's awesome. Jessica says, I need target dates for sure. So let me see. There's a couple of slides I want to hit still. Let me see if we can get through. We won't get through all of these, but I want to get through a couple of them because there was some good stuff that I want to make sure we cover. So we talked savings, right? So points here to focus on was savings. We're going to blitz through this really quick. So we talked about the 40% rule. That needs to be something that you work up to. You need to have 6 months of savings, 6 months of household expenses in your sacred account cash value. In addition to that, 1 month of expenses in cash. And then if you have any lines of credit you've borrowed against, home equity lines of credit, gold bullion lines of credit, whatever that loan value is, you've got 10% of that in reserves as well. Okay. You do this before you start investing so that you don't have to worry about insolvency and having to pull money out of deals and assets because you lack the income. Good. We covered this. We covered so the insurances are the next ones. So these are the 9. If you guys want to screenshot these really quick, you've got your auto insurance. This is something we all know we need: home and renters, health insurance, long-term disability insurance. We've got life insurance, long-term care, identity theft, legal protection, liability, and umbrella coverage. Each of these has a different timing. So Nano and I are not going to say, hey, sign up for all 9 of these at the same time right now, right? It's when do I need them and I get them in the right sequence. Some of these you will have an increasing need for, right? So it's like auto insurance. Then if I'm a billionaire and I wreck my car and I don't have insurance, it's not a big deal, right?
Not at all. But if I'm broke and then I know that I owe 30K on a car, it's a real problem.
Right. Now there's a flip side to this. So a good example of this would be legal protection. If I'm a billionaire, my need for legal protection actually increases. Right. So some of these insurances, as you build wealth, the need for them goes down because you're self-insuring, because you can cover it financially. But the ones I've put in red, these are ones that actually they increase in necessity the more wealth you have. Life insurance, right? Everyone says, okay, well, you only need it till you've got enough to self-insure. Okay, but what about estate taxes? No one ever told you if your net worth is over, I think the number this year is going to be 12 million and you pass away, the government's going to take 40% off the top before it goes to your kids and grandkids. Like you just got literally taxed to death after you've died. You're paying 40% taxes. You can use life insurance to cover that. Right? Identity theft protection. That's another one. As I build a more valuable identity, it's more risky. It's something that more people would want to get their hands on. I need to protect it even more. Liability insurance. That's another one. So these are all different ones that are important at various times. And I want to make sure everyone has that concept. The other one is credit, right? Nano, we see people get in a mess with credit.
100%. It's almost like this giving, and I hate to use this analogy, but it's like you give a car to a teenager, a Mustang, too much power too early and not knowing how to use it. That, can create a problem. Sure, you may have, a very responsible teenager, but it's if I don't know how, if I get too much and I don't have a proper knowledge on like even the purpose of using it, it's very easy to fall into a trap of using for something that I don't need or justifying it on what's like, okay, I'm going to use this. And somehow we make a justification, right? We spend more than what we have, right? We go into debt. And then it can get out of control pretty quick, which I see often. And then it's a problem to get out. Now I'm insolvent, right? So I do see that.
And we've all heard this phrase, OPM, other people's money. It's the idea that we borrow. Now, when I push it this way, I'm like, it's OPM. And you're like, okay, so Jerry's going to borrow money from Nano. Nano earns some interest. Jerry gets to use the money. He can do stuff he never could have done before. Then it sounds cool. But when you look at it with banks, it's actually not OPM. Okay, it's NBM. Nobody's money. The bank is making that stuff out of thin air, right? So it literally is the money didn't exist. They now created it into existence, and now they're loaning it to you at interest, right? And they're securing it by an asset, and you're paying it back with your real income, right? Like, think about that. It's like that for me, that is financial slavery. It doesn't matter how it, if I can leverage it, it's nobody's money. It didn't exist. If it was theirs, great. I'm happy to borrow their money, but it was nobody's money. They're putting no risk at the table, and they're taking my real income, right? And when I pay it back, that's not other people's money. That's my income. I'm paying that loan back, principal and interest, with my actual income on money that didn't exist in the first place. And it's secured by a real life asset that they will take away if I don't pay them back their invisible money, right? Like that's what's actually going on. So with credit, here's what we teach. We teach the first part, and this is not about investing. This is about solvency at this stage. 6 months of expenses and credit in addition to your sacred account. Why? Because if you deplete that, you want to have more. You don't want to be, 6 months in and you don't have income or something happens and then you're done, right? If you've got another 6 months of credit reserves, sure, it's not the best to charge it up, but it's better than filing bankruptcy. It's better than being destitute, right? So that's something that we help our clients do. The other one is trusts and corporations. So I want to just give this quick example on this one, right? I won't go into trusts and corporations because we just don't have the time tonight. But this is an example. Let's say Kate owns a rental property in an LLC. It's domiciled in Wyoming. So she sets up a Wyoming LLC to own her rental property. The tenant sprains the ankle in the yard and decides that the tenant wants to sue the property owner. Okay, this happens. Like tenants decide they're going to sue or whatever goes on, and there's risk now to Kate, the property owner. Because she set up a corporation and because she set it up in a state like Wyoming, the guy attempts to sue, but the Wyoming LLC is a non-disclosure state, meaning the tenant can't find out that Kate owns that LLC. It's completely anonymous. He actually has to subpoena, get a court subpoena, get the LLC to then disclose the owner, which is its own legal battle. On top of that, you could own it by 2 or 3 LLCs and have a trust on top. So you have to sue each of those before you can ever find out who owns that one and that one and that one and that one down the line, right? Again, knowledge. If I don't know these things, right? Now, even if he gets through, because there's an LLC, Kate's protected, right? He could sue the LLC, sure, but all of Kate's other assets are elsewhere. They're not in that LLC. Okay, so this is a form of protection. I want to set this up before I invest. I want to have my legal protections and asset structures before I invest, before I bring in a bunch of assets. So that's that one in a quick nutshell. We covered the credit, we covered the trusts. So let's talk our action plan real quick before we wrap up. Okay, so the first step on here is earn more income and stop worrying about costs. Okay, Nano said this at the very beginning. If I'm not earning enough income, if I'm not taking the basic steps, like the financial security can't happen because I don't have the resources to do it, right? The second action step here is take inventory of what protections you do have, right? Like how simple is that for someone to do, Nano?
As simple as making a decision and go, get into action, right? If I decide,
just make a list.
If I decide to do something, like it needs to be followed up with an action. And where should I start, right? Right on your own. We all have our own I should do list. I should stop eating ice cream, right? I should get up early to work out.
I don't know if I'll go that far. Ice cream is pretty good.
Right? But like point being is like, we all have our own where do I start? We all have, okay, what is my should do list? I should do this. And then follow that. You don't need me to tell you or Jerry to tell you what you need to do. You probably already know what it is, right? It's like, good. I should probably get on a call, or I should get the book, or I should put the time to learn, or I should start working out, start saving, start paying my debt, handle, confront, whatever it is, right? You probably already know what it is. Just a matter, okay, let me decide, follow up with action.
Yeah. And don't be a should head. Don't say you're going to should do things and then don't do them. I call that a should head. You're covered in should. Okay, so you've got the second one. Take inventory of what protections you have. Third, list the ones out that you don't have. And then start inspecting, what do I have, and make sure that what you do have is reliable. And then like Nano said, simply make a plan. Okay, what's my next step? I don't need like the protection. That is one piece of the blueprint to financial freedom. That's one component. So that's one project. I'm going to get this part done. Then I'm going to move on to the next one. You know, there's still things like tax planning and investing and all this other exciting stuff, but it's one step at one foot in front of the other, right? And then as you become self-insured, some of these, like we said, they'll go down in necessity. You won't need them as much. You'll start to get rid of some of these insurances and protections because you're wealthy. But if you never get there, then you're always in that zone of, okay, I've got to have these things because of the risk, right? So we're telling you the way out of that risk is to build wealth, and it is to build financial freedom.
Another step that I see, Jerry, you know, going back to you know, what you're mentioning right now on the slides is a person wanting to understand everything before taking action on the first step.
Yes.
Right. So,
I'll share. Lexi said this today. She said, so it was on the Sacred account. There was somebody that was like, hey, I want to know like all of the technical details. And they hadn't even used it yet. They hadn't taken their first loan. They hadn't used it for their debt buyout, but they're like, well, how does this mechanism work? How does that mechanism work? And she's like, it's like walking into a Ferrari dealership and asking the mechanic how the car is built, and you've never even driven one before. And it's like, unless you're going to build one, you don't need to know how a Ferrari is built. You just need to know how to drive the Ferrari so that you can use the thing.
Totally.
Didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're good. You're good. No, that was perfect. That was a perfect analogy.
Good. We've got a couple questions before we wrap up. Jennifer asked, how much is the initial investment for the program? And why are you doing this on a Friday night? So two really good questions. So Neno, how much does it cost for someone to get started with us as a client?
$9.99.
That's it. Now, as you go, there's different services. There's different things that will help you with. Each of those has a cost associated. We'll go over those at the time that you need them. Our big rule is that we don't sell things to people that they don't need, and we don't recommend you buy anything you don't understand. Now, the reason why we do these on Friday nights is for us, only serious people are going to show up on a Friday night. I've been doing these every Friday night for the last over 4 years now. I've not missed a Friday except for maybe twice. Right. And so for me, I was looking at, okay, well, I want to help serious people on finances. Most people on a Friday, at least pre-COVID, you know, they were out, you know, partying, they were on date night, they were going to the movies, they were doing whatever. We're starting to get back to some of that stuff now. But the person that's going to say, okay, on a Friday night, instead of doing all that, I'm going to show up and learn about finances. Okay. To me, that's an indicator that that person is serious. That's who I'm going to help. So that's why we do these on Friday nights. And we always have. I think we've got maybe a few more questions. He says he's seeing how manipulative the stock market is. Yeah, literally, it's like a hallucinogenic. Whatever you want the stock market to be, it can be, as long as you pay the right people. Jennifer says she's so excited for the program. She's learned about all this for years. She's had no idea how to use it. Thank you so much. That's awesome. We're glad to help. Great. Let's see if we have anything left on Facebook for questions before we wrap up. Nano, as I'm checking, what can people do if they want to learn more?
So for sure. So a couple of things, right? One, we have your YouTube channel, lots of content there. So that's one place to go, right? Go learn. You could go on your own, by all means, right? You could get in touch with one of us, right? So why? Because almost like guiding the individual. It's like this subject of finance, right? You may be dealing with debt or saving, like maybe new, or maybe you just want going from A to B. It makes it a little simpler whenever a person is looking from the outside that has the knowledge, such as one of ourselves, to be helping you, right? Okay, what's going to be your starting point, given your scenario? That means I'm going to be providing specific data to you that's applicable right now, right? Sure, the content about trust and corporation, it is fantastic, but that's not going to come until later, right? Sure, the content about private lending deals, it is great, but that's not going to come until later, right? Point being is to get started, they can go to YouTube channel, can get a book, right? You have a website here with article as well. We also have the Wealth Dynamics University program. We have 4 times a week, myself on Monday. We have Lexi on Wednesday. Maya on Thursday, and you on Friday. tuning live, right? So lots of ways that a person can actually up their knowledge in this area. Just got to decide.
Absolutely. We had a great success story just come through on Facebook. Let me read this really quick, Nano.
Right,
This is from Brianna Shaw. You know Brianna.
Yeah.
She said, since opening my Sacred account, I've paid off 3 debts. I've acquired a part-time job as well as my new seasonal business. And she said she's still trying to grow the income. She's still not where she wants to be at with the income, but she's pushing those income streams up. So that's an awesome success. 3 debts. She's increased. She's got the part-time job. She's got the business now. She said, I'm mainly in love and excited with having my Sacred account. It's working so well. And I see myself acquiring bits of more income than I had before. Awesome success story. Good. One more question here from Jennifer. Wealth Dynamics University, what does that cost to join? So we do a 2-week trial for free, Jennifer. If you reach out to Michael Kerrigan, you can get set up with that. Nano, what is that? If maybe $50, $60 a month if someone wants to.
Options, right, for the individual. You can do $50 a month. You can do $40 a month. And then you can do just pay up front for the entire year, right? That, it's going to be around $600. So it depends on what a person's trying to do. Either way, we'll work it out with you. First of all, let's make sure that it makes sense to you and that you're good. If it doesn't make sense, that's the very first thing. Is it going to help? Good, right? No, let's say if it is around $600, we're talking about less than $2 a day, right? So what are we spending money on, right? We're about, $2 a day. If I'm going to be spending $5 on a coffee, how about I drink my coffee while I'm doing like 10 minutes of study, right? Maybe I don't do it every day. Maybe I do 3 times a week. Something is better than nothing, right? So that the pricing.
Awesome. Thank you, Nano. Good. So we're going to tune out here. Again, if you guys don't have a copy of the book, reach out to Michael in the comments. You can also email michael@wealthdynamics.com. If you go to jerryfetta.com/B2F, you can get this. If you want the sale price, though, you got to reach out to Mike. And then we will be back again next week. Nano, do you have anything you want to wrap up with?
So Monday, we have the book call. I'm actually covering a new book here called The Legend of the Monk and the Merchant. It's going to be about the mindset, having the proper mindset, removing all these false ideas about being wealthy. It kind of goes hand in hand. That's going to be helping a person basically take action and have the correct computation in order to embark in this journey, right? They're trying to accomplish, if your goal is to accomplish wealth.
So that's Monday, 4 p.m. Eastern time on our company Facebook page. You can see Nano live streaming. And that's an awesome book too. So I'm excited for him to cover that with everyone. Good. Well, let's wrap up here tonight. I think Nano is going to fall asleep on us. It's past his bedtime.
I'm actually doing good. I'm probably going to have a hard time going to sleep because I'm wired up right now.
Awesome. Well, good job, man. Thank you guys all for watching. Make sure you share this and we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah.